The story of the weekend might be the story of the century in sports. And hear me out on this one, because it's not just about soccer or football. Yes, it's the story of the announcement of a European Super League. Yes, it's the story of 12 breakaway giants of European football seduced into the idea of bathing in piles of their own money. But mainly, it's the story about the greed of the very rich threatening to crush the rest. Welcome to 2021, kids, and let's just hope it's just soccer. If you aren't familiar with the story, these 12 giants, 6 from England, 3 from Spain, 3 from Italy, including 12 of the top 16 most valuable clubs in the world, came together to announce the formation of a Super League financed by JP Morgan that would create, in essence, its own Champs League with 2 major caveats. There would be no relegation, easy for me to say, and no need to qualify. They will just set up shop, make a couple of TV deals, and get richer than everybody else. Now, all the regulatory bodies that have run football for ages are up in arms, screaming bloody murder. What about the rest of us? The president of UEFA said that it was a spit in the face of all football lovers. The English FA, the Royal Spanish Football Federation, Lega Serie A, and all of FIFA and their member associations have vowed they will, quote, remain united in our efforts to stop this cynical project, which is pretty much akin to the Spider-Man meme. You know, the one where Spidey turns to see a duplicate of himself and all he can muster is to point a finger? And while putting FIFA or UEFA into the good guys bucket is harder than skiing through a revolving door, that's not really the conundrum here. Sure, it might be how this league is stopped, or the threats of kicking the teams out of Champs League could stop it, or the suggestions that the players in the Super League won't be eligible for their World Cup clubs or their World Cup countries is dumber than closing playgrounds only to open them up one day later. Sorry, what? That happened? All right. All of this could be one giant negotiating ploy, and it might work. But that's not why it's a story for me. The reason it's a story for me is that the greed of many of the very richest in football are perfectly fine with sacrificing the future and the past to get what they want. And to do it in the middle of a global pandemic when most clubs outside the mightiest of the mighty are struggling to make ends meet is brazen at best and, well, cowardly, treasonous at worst. You see, there are structures in place to make sure the poorest of all teams can be rewarded by finding and fielding a good team. The relegation model was built to reward and punish for play on the pitch. Qualification in Europe, the same. You're good, you get money. You aren't, you don't get that money. But everyone has a chance, at least in theory. How can, say, Everton now compete with Liverpool if the Reds are giving a $1 billion head start every year in leagues that have never even heard of a salary cap? No, the reason this is the biggest story to me is that lost in all this is the will of the fans, most of whom are dead set against this because it diminishes what they watch every day. The rivalries that they value are the ones in their own backyard. Some they have watched for over a century. You see, the fans who will fill the stadiums every day are being passed over for the worldwide audience on television. And it's not just the fans of the 12 breakaway teams. Think of all the fans of the teams left behind. And that's not just me saying that, or the teams left behind saying that. Here's Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp's thoughts on the fans' pregame today.
Football is the most important parts of football are the supporters and the team, and we have to make sure that that really nothing gets in between that.
In the UK especially, where the 6 teams, 3 of them are owned by Americans, 5 of the 6 are owned by foreign groups. They're not only leaving the other 14 clubs to languish in their wake, never mind the championship, the EFL 1 and 2, the FA Cup. And yet here we are on the verge of leaving decades and decades of traditions to rot so that this select group can pull a Scrooge McDuck, just dive into piles of their own money. It is corporate greed at its best or worst. If there is money to be made, then go out there and make it. Who cares what happens to the rest? Who cares? Even if our fans, our own fans, don't like them, let them figure it out. Man, if sports is a microcosm of life, then welcome to 2021.